Hi guys, Claudia Boleyn here, and this is my fourth, I'm not sure if it's my fourth, I think it's my fourth vlog in my BPD therapy series. So I'm going to jump right in. I'm sure you know the format by now. So last week's session was all about distancing, and we had a little bit of homework. They taught us some techniques to try and calm us down, to kind of detach us slightly from our emotions, to stop us from like panicking and completely freaking out. And I actually had a lot of reasons to use that this week, in a good way. It's not been a bad week, it's been really good, because this week I have done some things that I really didn't think were possible anymore for me, and at some points like I didn't even think they'd be possible for me in the future. So on Friday I went to see Captain Marvel with Dan. So cinemas are very difficult for me because I completely freak out. I can't go without like a family member, so my mum went as well, but she didn't watch the film. So I was with Dan, so I felt okay. Usually I would need the seat exactly next to the door, because I've freaked out before in the cinema, but this time I kind of compromised because Dan likes sitting higher up, so I kind of sat on the end seat next to the stairs. But yeah, I made it through the whole film without freaking out, and this is not a video about Captain Marvel, but oh my god, I absolutely love that film so much. Yeah, I cannot recommend it enough. It's good. But yeah, and then on Saturday, so this is a big thing for me as well, because I get really like drained because of how much like emotion it takes and how much anxiety I have. So then on Saturday I went to go and see Wicked the musical in London. So we booked this a while ago, and honestly I didn't know if I'd be able to make it or not. So I went to see Wicked at the Apollo Victoria Theatre, and they were amazing because I called them up. Basically I wanted to know which seats would be best for someone with my my disabilities, and they have like a special like access area. So there's a place specifically reserved right next to these toilets, which are fairly good seats, that you can book, and they have reserved for people who have difficulties like mine. And I was really overwhelmed, and I felt really emotional after I'd come off the phone and spoken to them. And I mean, they even rang me back afterwards and said, actually there's some seats that might be better, would you prefer to be next to the stairs or right next to the toilet? Like, they gave me options. And I felt emotional because I've never experienced that level of like accommodation before, and I feel like that should be the norm. I feel like everywhere should make you feel like that. I've only ever felt embarrassed and ashamed to be asking for these things, and you know, I know you're not supposed to, and I know it's not normal to think, it's not right to think, oh, I'm a burden or something, but it does feel embarrassing to have to ask for these things because they should be readily available. But they made it so amazing and easy, and oh, when I rang up for tickets it was like, oh, here's a number you can talk to if you have disability and they can maybe help you with seating, and it was just fantastic. So my challenge was I had to go up there on the train. So I was with Mum and Dan, so I can travel if I'm with a family member, but it's still hard. As various family members will attest to, I am a nightmare to travel with because I will have multiple panic attacks, be sick, cry, just totally zone out. I really do freak out. But yeah, I was with Mum and Dan, and I was okay. We got the train up to Victoria. The theatre is right outside the station. So for the last couple of stops I did kind of lock myself in the train toilet. It was okay, no one else wanted to use it. I would have come out if anyone else like knocked on the door or something. Mum and Dan were watching as well to let me know if that was going to happen. But I needed to zone out and take some time, and I used some of my techniques from last week. So I used the breathing exercises, even just the simple ones that you think you've already got sorted in your head. When you're panicking, those things go out of the window, so you actually do have to focus your mind on it. So I was doing the in for 4, out for 6 in the train toilet, and it actually calmed me down immensely. So it does work. And I did lots of the techniques, like telling myself that I refused to feel shame. I kept saying to myself, look, yes, you're finding this difficult, but it's not something that's shameful, it's just a symptom of your illness, and because it's a symptom of your illness, you can get through it, you can cope with it. And I kept saying to myself, what is the worst that could happen? Which is a scary thought for me, but because of my work the previous weeks, it was weird, like, it's like I haven't even realised how much this work I've been doing has been affecting me in a positive way, because those thoughts came so much easier than they usually would. I was genuinely allowing myself to feel these emotions and feel this anxiety and notice the physical symptoms instead of just feeling them, and thinking, okay, I'm shaking, I'm nauseous, I'm going to be sick, I'm sweating, I'm dissociating. I was able to sort of say to myself, right, okay, so I've noticed those same things, you know, like on a checklist, but they are a symptom of that emotion and that panic. And I kept saying to myself, look, The people you love most in the world are here with you. You've got Dan with you and you've got your mum with you. You're okay. And I think because they're so used to me, Mum and Dan, it's sad because I feel like I've let Dan down so much because of this, because he wouldn't put it like this at all. Like, he would never ever like put it like this, but just in my head, because there's so many things that I wish Dan and I could do together, but because I'm so rubbish at travelling and I panic all the time, we can't do loads of things, and there's always the possibility that when we go and do something, I'm going to panic and then it's not going to happen, or, you know. And I'm starting to get past the idea in therapy that I let people down by doing that, because it's not. It's an illness I have, and as long as I'm trying my best and being honest with people, that's all I can do, and my family love and accept me for that, and so do my friends. And it's really just my own head which tells me those things, because my family and friends are actually really supportive about it and really great. But yeah, we did it and we watched the show and it was amazing, and we actually had oh god, I'm so sorry to talk about this during this vlog, I promise I'll shut up in a minute, but we had a standby Elphaba, and her name was, I think it was Laura Pick. Do you know what, I need to put it on my screen. I'll put her name up, just because if you can listen to her singing some of the songs from Wicked, her version of No Good Deed did some vocal tricks that I just, oh my god, it was so amazing. I couldn't believe it. She was fantastic. So yeah, we did that, and then I came back again on the train, and yeah, that was good. And then on Sunday, you know how I was telling you that we were going out for a meal with family members? So we went and we did that, and a worst case scenario kind of happened, because I panic about being stuck somewhere and not being able to kind of have an escape route or have a toilet or somewhere I can go. And we were going to somewhere which only should have taken about 25 minutes tops to get to, but there were some sort of like I think they were doing work on the motorway or something, so we had to go through kind of villages, and we ended up being in traffic for an hour and a half. So it took us an hour and a half to get there, I should say. Like, we were in traffic for most of that because it should have been a short journey, and there were so many times during that I felt myself getting hot and clammy and feeling sick, and I just felt myself going and thinking like those childlike thoughts, you know. It was like I was reverting into that, I can't cope, I can't exist, oh my god, I want to die, I don't want to be here, I can't handle this. But instead I was doing those things I learned last week, so I was kind of telling myself, right, be realistic here, this is what is happening. You cannot change the fact you are stuck in the traffic. Nobody wanted this, it's nobody's fault, it's happened. But what I could control was my own reaction, so I tried to make it easier for myself by doing my deep breathing, by trying to distract myself by talking to my family. Grandad put the cold air on for me, so it was nice and cool. Grandad drives me to my therapy, so he knows what I'm like to travel with. Like, I get on so well with my granddad, like, we have such a close bond. One time, Grandma and Grandad took me to London and I freaked out in Victoria train station. So, a fun day out all round. But no, he's really good with that, and we made it, and I went out, and then we came back and we did it. So this probably sounds so rubbish to people who that's probably normal for most people to just go out and do things, but for me it was absolutely huge, and I just feel elated to have done it. So today's lesson, that was relevant because we spoke about how we'd used our skills from last week and kind of applied them to our life. We kind of spoke about that. I didn't speak about those in the actual session because I was a bit shy today. I don't know why, I just felt like I was. But yeah, so today we worked on communicating. So I'm going to read you this. So, you know you are using the skill of communicating when you are willing to identify all your emotions, whether they feel good or bad, such as anger, sadness or joy. Your feelings are valid, even though your thoughts may be distorted. You do not judge your feelings are neither good nor bad. You refuse to use labels. You feel all your feelings. So I won't pretend I understand all this one. I feel like there was some of the stuff in this session that I struggled with a bit. But yeah, that was kind of the gist of it. So again, I'm not going to read all this stuff because I don't want to get done for copyright and have these videos taken down. But part of this communicating idea is that kind of what I've been doing before from last week, but but more so, is the idea that you notice your emotions and the way you feel, and being able to put those into words and explain them and kind of rationalise them with yourself and let yourself know they're okay. Because a lot of people who have emotional intensity disorder, we feel like these massive huge emotions, but there's also this weird feeling of shame and guilt kind of linked to it, which is kind of to do with society, because I think there is a stigma towards people with mental illness and mental illnesses, and even now when people are talking about it more, you always get those assholes who are like, oh, I don't think you should be talking about that, or Why have you got to put a label on it? You know, why have you got to say you've got this diagnosis? And it's still like a really toxic environment. So I think anyone with these issues has those kind of thoughts in the back of their mind, just from like society, feeling like you're a burden, feeling like, oh god, there's something terribly wrong with me, and if I have this emotion it means this, and I shouldn't have this emotion. And there is so much harm that people do. They do not know the amount of harm they do, and this, I have spoken about this so many times, and I will fight for this throughout my whole life. People with mental illness and these emotional difficulties, even just traits, need to feel like they can speak about those traits and that they won't be judged for them. You know, it's this idea of, oh, keep it to yourself is incredibly toxic because it induces shame, and you know how that spirals, and it does actually lead to suicide. You think that's a big leap? It's really not. That's genuinely how it works. I think especially, I know in the UK, a huge amount of men in particular commit suicide. They die from suicide because they have like mental health issues, or they've just got into a situation that's so bad they feel like they can't get out of it. And it's not necessarily what they have, like their issue, which is the thing that has brought them to that point. It's the stigma, it's the shame, because unfortunately in 2019 we still have those ridiculous notions that a man showing his emotions and admitting he needs help can be weakness, which this is for another video. You don't have to be a feminist to follow my channel or me or anything, but this is part of why I do believe in feminism, because I feel like so many of these gender ideas and these gender issues and trying to fit into these boxes actually tie into mental health, because I think that's why we're seeing such a high suicide rate for men, because they feel like they have to be these like assertive, sorted guys, you know? They've got to provide for people, and I mean, you see it all the time, don't you? You see guys being mocked, you see the way kids are being brought up, like little boys being told not to cry, being told that they're wusses, and I think we've all experienced that in some ways. I've certainly seen that with my friends and family, and it's just society. It's not done by mean people, but it's something we need to stop doing. Anyway, that was a tangent, but it says here that you may not be able to change the intensity of your emotion, but you can change their power. And I love that, because, for example, I might feel sad and depressed and have a day where I can't get out of bed and I only manage to do the very basic things. But, okay, that's the fact. The fact is I feel that way, and that's how it's affected me. But I don't have to feel shame about that, and it's the shame which is the real awful part of it. I need to condition myself, and I'm sure this is something you guys can relate to if you're watching this. We need to condition ourselves not to judge and blame ourselves for those things. It also talks a lot here about how we assign different emotions, like good or bad. So we've got here like happy and proud as it's supposed to be good emotions, and then you've got angry and sad as negative emotions. And this ties into something else that I talk about, and I've wanted to make a video about this, but I don't think I ever have. But something that really gets me, especially in today's day and age, especially like in online discourse, is this. It's something I'm going to call toxic positivity. Because there's this idea that, and it happens in fandom spaces, in all sorts of different communities, that you have to be positive all the time and never express any negativity and never make any criticism or complaint, because otherwise that makes you bad. Like in fandom, for example, it's like, oh, if you criticise a show, then it makes you a bad fan. When in reality, that's ridiculous. It depends on what you're criticising, and that's your right as a person. It's the same with this mental health stuff. It's not healthy to always be this positive person, because it's not realistic. We're not always going to feel happy and positive, and the more pressure we have to be, oh, I don't want to be a bad person, like I've got to constantly pretend I'm happy even when I'm not happy, you end up putting on a mask for people instead of being honest. And it's not your fault, it's not people with mental illness's fault that we do this, but we end up pretending we're fine and, oh yes, things are going well. So like a close friend will say, how are you? And you will be having a really terrible time, but we'll be so ashamed of looking like a burden, being negative, that we have to just pretend we're fine. I honestly just absolutely despise it. And I say this as someone who, I don't know if you are aware of like other stuff that I'm into and that I get up to, but I'm someone who quite heavily critiques different media and that kind of thing, from like a sort of mostly a feminist lens, but sometimes like LGBT as well, and for different racial issues, that kind of thing. But the amount of time that valid criticism, in fact it doesn't even have to be valid criticism to be honest, but it's called bad simply because it is criticism. That idea of positivity is good and criticism is bad is not necessarily true, because sometimes criticism can be good because things can get better because of things being called out. Sometimes positivity is bad because it can let bad stuff slide, you know? So it really depends on the context. So this idea of being happy and optimistic is always good and being sad and angry is always bad is so wrong. And if you're someone who has mental health issues, honestly, you'll be used to I'm sure you'll be used to this, because people who don't experience it just tell you, don't they? Just be happy. They really do. They really do say things like that, you know. Why don't you just be happy? Why don't you just be positive? And it's sort of like, okay, like, I get what you're saying. What you mean to say is that I should be taking the steps I need to help myself. But you're not helping by doing that. What you need to do is you need to encourage people to be realistic and honest. And if your friends feel like they can trust you and that you're someone who's going to listen to them, then you will save them a world of pain and difficulty. It's far better if someone is feeling bad to be able to articulate, yes, I'm actually having a bit of a down day today because of such and such, or I feel anxious about this, than it is for someone to feel that way and feel the pressure to cover it up and then feel the shame for feeling that. It's wrong, it's totally messed up, and we need to change the way we think about this stuff. So yeah, this kind of forced positivity is ridiculous. Like, obviously we want to encourage positivity in terms of doing your best and trying your best and wanting better and being optimistic, but not to the extent that you're having to cover your own emotions for fear of being like a bad person or a downer. Like, that's not good. So something else that we went through today which really resonated with me was we kind of spoke about the physical sensations that can come along with this stuff, because my path to getting to this point and understanding my mental health and actually finally being on the path of like sorting myself out and actually getting my life together, it started as it does with a lot of people, with physical complaints, because we didn't really know about mental health. We didn't talk about it when I was younger. Even though the signs were there, it wasn't something that was recognised or spoken about. So the first time I ended up going to the doctors for this kind of thing were these like recurring stomach complaints. So I got diagnosed with gastritis, which is like it's kind of like the stress was creating too much acid in my stomach, which was really painful and making me ill, and I missed a lot of school because of that. I also missed a lot of school in year 5 because of bad migraines, and it was all to do with my mental health. So it's not accurate when people think that your mental health just affects your emotions. It doesn't. It does actually impact you physically. So there's a list here of common physical sensations. I'm just going to read them to you because I feel like you may well feel validated by this, because I certainly did, and like, it so much makes sense when you think about it like this. So there's nausea, upset stomach, butterflies in the stomach, indigestion, bloating, abdominal cramping, reflux, burping/belching, burning sensation, lump in throat, difficulty swallowing, grinding teeth, choking, or a change in appetite. There's headaches, tingling, numbness, burning sensation in your hands and feet, dizziness, vertigo, lightheadedness, inner fog, weakness, feeling faint, blurred vision, double vision, photophobia, which is apparently a sensitivity to light, and hyperacusis, I don't know how to pronounce that, but it's sensitivity to sounds, tinnitus, that's the ringing in the ears, unusual tastes, unusual smells, then there's muscle tension, stiffness, clenching your jaw, having a tight facial expression, tremors and shakes, getting twitches, chills, unusual movement, closed posture, sweating, there is more, shortness of breath, difficulty breathing, chest tightness, wheezing, a fast heart rate, a slow heart rate, an irregular heartbeat, palpitations, a pounding heart, urinary urgency, and frequent urination. What a charming list. So I get loads of these. I'm not going to like go into like all the gory details, but as I said, like when I get nervous I feel physically sick, and I am physically sick. I actually vomit, I feel like I have an upset stomach, I actually get stomach pains because of the acid from the stress, which gives me like gastritis, so I'm on and off omeprazole for that, tablets at the doctor's. I definitely sweat a lot when I'm nervous because I feel like my hands are really clammy and I shake, and then I get really cold as well. So people comment, like my mum was commenting when we were on our way to London, like she was holding my hand on the train for a little bit because I was so nervous, and she was like, wow, Claudia, you're so cold. I didn't even realise, but I was really cold, but I didn't even notice. Also, urinary urgency. Can I just say, right, if you're someone else who gets the same things as me, or just has mental illness issues in general, like, people don't understand. One of the more annoying symptoms is just needing to go for a wee all the time because you're nervous. Imagine that, but all the time. It's so annoying. So an activity that we did was how to identify if something is a feeling or if it is like an opinion or a belief, which I'm already like, I get this, I'm already quite good at this, I think, because I write a lot and I read a lot and I kind of journal and I look back at that kind of thing. I think I'm quite aware of my own thought process. And also I think I've had a bit of an education on this, being a feminist online and someone who talks about like social issues and mental health. I think that you get very used to very quickly being very careful with what you say, so in some ways it teaches you like really good skills about how to kind of phrase things and how to understand what you're saying and communicate well. So it says here, if the word feel is followed by that, it is not a feeling, it is an opinion or a thought. For example, I feel that you have treated me unfairly. So perhaps you have been treated unfairly. That's not saying that you haven't, this is making no judgment on it, but that is still your feeling. That's your feeling of what's happened. And then there is, if you can substitute the word am for feel and it still makes sense, it is a feeling. For example, I feel happy, because it means I am happy. I also find that that can help in conversations and like assertiveness, because this is something I have worked on throughout my life, because I feel like I need to be better at asserting myself, because in the past I am someone who worries about being polite and upsetting people, and in some ways I'm someone who stands up for other people like really fiercely like I always have been, but when it comes to myself, I worry about it and I second guess myself, and I'm kind of learning to assert myself politely. So if I feel like I've been disrespected, instead of being like really angry and like you've disrespected me, I'm kind of pretty good at being like, okay, so I might have got this wrong, but I feel like I do feel disrespected, because you don't know what the other person's intention is. So I'm quite good at communicating that very calmly and saying, look, this is how I feel, and being upfront and honest about that. And that's still like a work in progress for me, that I think I'm getting pretty good at it, because before I've just let people talk to me in like a really bad way and talk down to me, and I've just kind of come to accept it. And that's not happening anymore, because I am a grown woman. And I realised, like in therapy, I've been told this before, like I put up with too much in that sense. Like it's important that I do set those boundaries and don't let people talk to me like that. It's important for my own personal well-being. So yeah, that's something that I'm getting better at. So there's only like one last part to this lesson today. We spent a lot of it kind of thinking about our individual experiences and the way they physically impacted us, and it kind of helped us to understand ourselves a bit. So I'll let you know more about this next week, because we'll have done the homework activities and I can talk about those. But the last thing we got asked to do was it's a collage. So it's about creating a safe space, really. So it's not the collage which is important, you can just do this in your head, but it's this idea of creating like a feeling of calm and something that you associate with calm. So there's different techniques they're going to teach us throughout the weeks that might work for us. So I was quite happy that it was a collage task for our homework, because I used to go to art college, so I'm really into that. And they suggest, you know, putting up these collages like on the wall or on the fridge or somewhere where you can see it, in work folders and things like that. And I kind of already do that. I feel like I surround myself with things that inspire me and things that are important to me. Like you can probably see in my bedroom, it's full of weird stuff. Like I've got all my Emmerdale art in the background, I've got all my Anne Boleyn stuff, I've got all my books out, because they're all things that inspire me and make me feel safe and grounded and inspired. So that's important. So I'm looking forward to doing a collage. They gave us like a load of old magazines to go through, and I just took so much stuff. So I'm going to show you my collage next week. We can have a little art thing. Yeah, so I'm excited about that. I even found some Emmerdale stuff from 2015. So, yeah, I'm gonna go because this is probably really long and I have to do the washing up because I've just got in. As soon as I come back from my session, I have lunch with Grandma and Grandad, because we do that at least once a week. And it's just really nice. So, yeah, I'll see you soon. I hope these are helpful. Yeah, I just hope that you're enjoying this and it's resonating in some way. Even if it doesn't, then I'm glad that I'm doing it for myself, because I can look back on this in the future and maybe see my progress going along. Okay, I love you loads. Keep on giving your comments. They're very encouraging, and I will read them if you want to share something personal. I mean, you don't feel any pressure to do that at all, but I will read them, I promise. So I love you loads, and I will see you next week. Okay, love you. Bye.